Hello, and thank you for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
Polls for the 2019 Likud party primaries closed Tuesday night with over 58% voter turnout, an increase over previous years. And though the votes are still being tallied, early reports indicate that of the 142 candidates, the same usual suspects seem to have come out on top. Netanyahu will assume chairmanship of the Likud automatically, but with nearly all the votes counted, Transportation and Intelligence Minister Israel Katz is now in first, with Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein coming up close behind him. Then the remaining top 5 spots so far are going to Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, Culture and Sports Minister Miri Regev, and Gideon Sa'ar, who is considered Netanyahu's biggest rival within the party. Now, what's also interesting about this year's primary elections, though, is that while the primaries do form the list for popularity and strength within the party, the list will not necessarily translate to preference for ministerial portfolios. In fact, reports have already indicated that Netanyahu will reward Likud loyalists first, again contributing to predictions that a Netanyahu government will look much the same as it was. Further, many of the veteran Likud members in question came out in top form in the primaries anyhow. The last 5 positions in the top 10 as of the latest count, for example, were former Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat and ministers Yariv Levin, Yoav Gallant, Gila Gamliel, and Avi Dicker. Finally, in addition to voting for Likud candidates in most of the top 35 spots in the list, the final few spots in the top 35 will be given to regional candidates chosen by committee, and potentially to candidates from a smaller party that may merge with the Likud at a later date. Just a day after dozens of top Israeli politicians signed a document in support of the Nachal movement, which aims to settle at least 2 million Israelis in the West Bank, an Israeli West Bank monitoring group is reporting that that wish might be granted sooner than later. According to reports by the Associated Press, the West Bank Jewish Population Statistics Project is reporting that the population in Israeli settlements is exploding at rates far higher than that of the general population. In fact, the data that was published shows an increase in the settlement population of 3.3%, nearly 75% higher than the general population's growth of 1.9%. Additionally, the organization also predicted that that rate will only increase under the current political climate. Baruch Gordon, the director of the project, reportedly explained that not only are most of the settlers religious, meaning that they already have a higher birth rate than average, but also the White House's attitudes on the situation have made settlement more normalized. Speaking to the AP, Gordon said that since the change of the United States administration, the atmosphere for construction permits has become much easier. They're being given with greater ease. He added that, quote, "I think possibly the next report, and certainly in the ones after that, I think we'll start to see a huge surge in the numbers here," end quote. Now, the AP could not get the Interior Ministry to confirm these numbers, but the ministry is reportedly in contact with the project and says that the data sounds legitimate. Also, the report was compiled by former Knesset member Yoav Katz of the National Union Party. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu announced on Tuesday that he will be traveling in the coming weeks to meet with Russian President Putin in Moscow. Also, the announcement was made during a press conference with Austrian President Alexander Van der Bellen, where Netanyahu reiterated his vows to prevent Iran from advancing in Syria.
I'll be going on February 21st again to Russia, following my discussions with President Putin in Paris a few months ago and subsequent phone conversations. It's very important that we continue to prevent Iran from entrenching in Syria. In many ways, we've blocked that advance, but we're committed to continuously blocking it, continuously preventing Iran from creating another war front against us right here opposite the Golan Heights. This is one of the subjects, the main subjects, that I'll be discussing with President Putin.
Further, Netanyahu added that, quote, "We have a great challenge from Iran which openly calls for our destruction. It minces no words about this. We are committed to preventing their acquisition of nuclear weapons, which would be directed at us. But we're also committed to preventing their aggression in Syria," end quote. Meanwhile, however, the Russian-made S-300 missile defense systems that were given to the Syrian Assad regime late last year are now reportedly active, potentially making operations in Syria a lot more dangerous for Israeli forces. Additionally, Iranian officials reportedly responded again on Tuesday to Israeli strikes in Syria, calling them unacceptable, and threatening that, quote, "If these actions continue, we will activate some calculated measure as a deterrent and as a firm and appropriate response to teach a lesson to the criminal and lying rulers of Israel," end quote. Netanyahu has never given much credence to these types of threats, however, and he's stated often that Israel would continue to operate in Syria and anywhere else as long as it's necessary to do so. To that end, Netanyahu and Putin also coordinate regularly over the phone and have met in person 4 times already in 2018 alone, 11 times since Russian forces entered Syria in 2015.
That's all for now, so remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast.